At Thanksgiving, my father raised his glass and announced, "We're selling the business. You're getting nothing." Everyone at the table stared at me. I couldn't even breathe. Because for 15 years, I had worked beside that man, missed birthdays for that business, emptied my savings into it, and turned down a better career to keep our family company alive. And my father had just erased me with one sentence. "My name is Emily Carter." I was 34, and Carter Hardware had been part of my life for as long as I could remember. My father, Richard, started the business when he was 27. It began as a tiny hardware store with 2 employees and a leaking roof. By the time I was 19, it had grown into 3 stores, a warehouse, and a small online operation. My younger brother, Jason, was 29. He was charming, confident, and good at talking to people. I was different. I handled numbers, inventory, payroll, suppliers, taxes. The boring things nobody noticed until they went wrong. Dad used to tell people, "Emily is the reason this place runs." I believed him. I believed that meant something. After college, I received a job offer from a large company in another state. It paid almost twice what Dad was paying me. I turned it down. Dad had just lost a major supplier, and the business was struggling. "I need you," he told me. So I stayed. I worked 12-hour days. Sometimes 14. When the warehouse flooded, I slept on an office couch for 3 nights. When the company couldn't make payroll one month, I used $18,000 from my savings to cover the employees. Dad promised he would pay me back. He never did. I didn't complain. It was family. Or at least, that's what I thought. Things changed when Jason came back after spending 2 years traveling. Dad immediately gave him a management position. Jason arrived late on his first day. Then again the next day. He made expensive mistakes. He ordered the wrong inventory. He signed a bad lease. He even lost one of our biggest commercial customers. Every time I confronted Dad, he defended him. "He's learning. He'll get better. Give him time." I tried. Then I discovered Jason had been using the company credit card for personal expenses. A hotel. Designer clothes. Weekend trips. Almost $27,000. I showed Dad the statements. He barely looked at them. "He'll pay it back." "Dad, that's company money. He's your brother." That sentence stayed with me. Because whenever I needed fairness, Dad gave me family. Whenever Jason needed forgiveness, Dad gave him family. Then came Thanksgiving. Mom, Linda, was sitting at the head of the table. Jason sat beside his girlfriend, Melissa. My Uncle Robert was there too. I thought it was going to be a normal family dinner. Dad stood up after dessert. He tapped his glass. "I have an announcement." Everyone looked up. Dad smiled. "We're selling the business." I froze. I looked at him. "What?" He continued as if I hadn't spoken. "We've accepted an offer. The deal should close early next year." My mother smiled. Jason looked excited. Then Dad turned toward me. "And Emily, I want you to understand something." My stomach tightened. "You're getting nothing." The room went silent. I stared at him. "I don't understand." "You're an employee." I almost laughed. "An employee?" Dad nodded. "You were never an owner." I felt heat rise in my face. "I've worked there for 15 years. And you've been paid." I looked at my mother. She wouldn't meet my eyes. "Mom?" She whispered. "Your father has made his decision." I looked around the table. Nobody defended me. Then Jason leaned back and said, "You should have known Dad was going to leave the business to me." I stared at him. "You knew?" He smiled. "Of course." Something inside me broke. I pushed my chair back. I need some air. Dad said. Don't make a scene. I walked outside. I stood on the porch in the freezing November air. My hands were shaking. But beneath the anger was something worse. Regret. I suddenly remembered every time I had told myself, it's okay. It's family. It hadn't been okay. Not once. That night, I couldn't sleep. At 2 a.m, I opened my old files. Payroll records. Bank statements. Supplier contracts. Emails. Anything connected to the business. I wasn't looking for revenge. I wanted to understand what had happened. Then I found something strange. A contract from 3 years earlier. I read it twice. Then a third time. My name was on it. Not as an employee. As a shareholder. I felt my heart pound. I called an attorney the next morning. Her name was Sarah Bennett. She was 42 and had represented several small businesses. I showed her the contract. She read it quietly. Then she looked at me. Did you know you own 20% of this company? No. She looked back at the document. Then someone has some explaining to do. My hands went cold. The document was a shareholder agreement. It showed that Dad had transferred 20% of the company to me after I used my savings to rescue it during a financial crisis. There was a signature. Mine. And Dad's. But I had never seen the agreement. Sarah asked me a question. Did you sign this? No. She stared at the page. Then we have a problem. I thought that was the biggest revelation. It wasn't. Sarah searched the corporate records. And that's when we found the second twist. The company had been trying to sell 100% of the business. But they couldn't. Because 20% legally belonged to me. The sale couldn't close without my signature. Suddenly, Dad's Thanksgiving announcement made sense. He hadn't been informing me. He had been trying to pressure me into accepting nothing before I discovered what I actually owned. I called him. Dad, we need to talk. His voice became cold. There's nothing to discuss. I found the shareholder agreement. Silence. Then he said. Where did you get that? I knew immediately. He had been hiding it. I own 20%. You don't know what you're talking about. I have the documents. He hung up. The next day, Dad showed up at my apartment. He looked furious. You're going to ruin everything. I stared at him. You already did. He lowered his voice. Emily, listen to me. The buyer will walk away if this becomes complicated. Then maybe you shouldn't have tried to sell something you didn't own. His face hardened. You've always been difficult. I almost smiled. Funny. I thought I was loyal. He left. I expected him to fight. Instead, something even stranger happened. The buyer contacted my lawyer. They wanted to meet me. I agreed. The buyer was a company called North Star Retail Group. Their representative, Daniel Hayes, was 51 and extremely calm. He placed a folder on the table. We've been negotiating with your father for 8 months. I nodded. He told us he owned the entire company. I believe you. Daniel looked uncomfortable. There's another issue. What? He opened the folder. Your father provided us with financial statements. My stomach tightened. What kind of statements? Statements showing the company had almost $2 million in debt. I stared at him. What? Daniel continued. But our due diligence found something else. He slid another document toward me. Nearly $600,000 was transferred out of the company over 3 years. I looked at the names. Richard Carter. Jason Carter. And several payments to a consulting company. I recognized the address. It belonged to Jason's girlfriend's family. My hand started shaking. Jason hadn't just wasted company money. He had been moving it. Then the third twist hit me. The consulting company didn't provide any real services. It was a shell company. Money went in. Money came out. And some of it had been transferred into a personal investment account. Jason's name was on it. My brother had been stealing from the business while Dad covered for him. And Dad had been trying to sell the company before anyone discovered the missing money. I sat there in silence. Daniel looked at me. We don't want your family drama. We want a clean transaction. I nodded. You'll get one. But I wasn't going to destroy the business. There were 63 employees depending on it. People who had nothing to do with my family's lies. So I made a decision. I would sell my 20%. But not to my father. And not under his terms. Sarah negotiated with North Star. They offered me a fair price for my shares. They also offered me a position overseeing the transition. I accepted. The sale went through months later. My father didn't control the company anymore. Jason was removed from management. The financial investigation continued. And my mother finally admitted she had known about the shareholder agreement. She had been afraid of Dad. That hurt more than I expected. I asked her. Why didn't you tell me? She cried. I thought keeping the family together was more important. I looked at her. It wasn't keeping us together, Mom. It was keeping a secret. She had no answer. On the day the sale closed, I walked through the warehouse one last time. I remembered sleeping on that office couch. The flooded floor. The unpaid bills. The employees I had fought to protect. For 15 years, I thought I had been building my father's dream. I realized I had been building something that deserved to survive even after my family destroyed itself. Dad called me that evening. You could have given me your shares. I stood by my window. You told me I was getting nothing. I was angry. So was I. You're still my daughter. I closed my eyes. And you're still my father. Neither of us spoke. Then he said, I wish you had trusted me. I answered quietly. I did. That was the problem. I hung up. I didn't feel victorious. I felt relieved. Because justice wasn't about taking everything from my father. It was about finally refusing to let him take everything from me. My father announced at Thanksgiving that I was getting nothing. He thought he had humiliated me in front of the people I loved. Instead, he forced me to look at the truth. I had spent 15 years proving my loyalty. He spent 15 minutes proving where I stood. And sometimes, the most painful betrayal isn't discovering that your family doesn't value you. It's discovering how long you were willing to accept less than you deserved just to keep calling them family. I didn't lose my inheritance that Thanksgiving. I found my voice. And for the first time in my life, I stopped asking my family to recognize my worth. I recognized it myself.